This is just Bob Bowman, and I'm coming at you with another video. This video is going to be a little bit difficult for me to discuss because I'm going to be talking about my personal experiences in this video. But before I get started, I just wanted to say a few things. That first, I love both of my parents. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. I thank my mother for allowing me to be born. And I thank my father for saving my life when it was unraveling. And, without both of them, I wouldn't be able to be alive and I wouldn't be able to be up here talking and sharing my experiences and expressing myself the way that I need to in order to improve my life. And this topic is going to be a little bit tough because I'm going to be discussing them on these topics, and I'm going to be discussing how it affected me in the long run and flaws that I find in myself, shortcomings in myself that I need to improve on, that I'm still working on within myself. And the topic is that most men are raised to be simps, son husbands, and cleanup men. And growing up in the household that I grew up in, it was a single parent household. And there were a lot of things that were transpiring that was out of my control that I couldn't do anything about. And I grew up in the inner city. And I understand that I'm very light skinned, but I have two black parents. Uh, One parent grew up in the projects, high yellow. The other one was adopted. And I'm not going to say which one was which because it's nobody's business. But you see that they both had trauma filled lives. And my mother, I found out some things that she went through growing up. And I couldn't imagine going through those things myself. So you have two people who they had me when they were young, around 20. Um, they had trauma filled lives already up until that point. They really didn't understand the responsibilities of what it would be to raise a child 100% because they were young at the time. And I understand that some people say, oh, that's not an excuse. But we have to understand that they had a lot of traumas in their lives growing up, and they had to deal with those traumas to the best of their abilities. And then they brought a life into this world. And I know that my father, he ended up going to the military. He did marry my mother, and the only reason why he did was because he couldn't be a single parent while joining the military at the time when he did so. So he was pretty much forced to marry my mother, and there was a little bit of resentment on his end for that, and it's a lot of things that transpired between both of them, and I don't want to get into their business because that's their business. I'm just an individual myself. Like, I love both my parents equally. So whatever issues that they have between them two, that's between them two. I have nothing to do with it. But I know that growing up, there were certain things that were going on in my household that I was just totally uncomfortable with. And I remember having a conversation with my father and letting him know everything that was happening and asking him to please let me stay with him because I really needed to get out of that environment. And I remember my father, he was quiet while he listened to me, but in the end, you know, he didn't do anything. And for years, I was so upset and I was so distraught that I was pretty much ignored. And he had to explain to me the reason why he didn't do anything. And he said that he was going through his own issues in his life at the time, and he was drowning and he was trying to recover from a lot of things. And so he couldn't really help me out the way that I needed. And I had to accept that. I mean, we all have our own issues. We all are human beings. We all can't do everything that everybody wants us to do. And even though like he didn't have to, he did make an effort to get to know me through my later childhood years. So I have to be appreciative of that. And then the fact that he has helped me out tremendously in recent times, I have to be very appreciative of that. But at the same time, I really needed him in my life at that time. That was the developmental years of who it was I was as a person. And I was being attacked partially for who it was that I was as a person. And I didn't know how to combat that because I really didn't have people that really cared about what it is that I was going through. I didn't have people that cared to even listen to what it is that I had to say. And then at the same time, I grew up with a speech impediment, so it was hard for me to articulate and express myself to a certain degree. And there were times where I didn't know the right words to say to express myself. And so I know that my mother, like I said, that I love her. She did the best that she could, uh, and I had to accept that she was miseducated on a lot of things growing up, especially on how to raise a male child. And for one, she's not a male child, so she's not a male, so she doesn't have the full tools to raise a male child by herself. And she only had the advice of certain women around her that had their own agendas, and so she was just going along with the program. And I know that there are things that me and my mother have that are alike. Like we both have big hearts. um, as a matter of fact, we both been taken advantage of by the same people at times as far as money goes because of how big our hearts are. And so with that being said, like I understand that she was miseducated. Like she was told certain things to go a certain way, or she did things a certain way, and she was disappointed in her life. And so while she was going through her ups and downs and her disappointments, like a lot of that fell on me, and I ended up growing up not knowing how to properly communicate, not knowing how to express myself properly, having the difficult times in social settings. And I'm in my 40s now, like I'm just turned 41. And I realized that even though it's not my fault for what happened, it's my problem. Like, it's up to me to fix what it is that's going on with me. I can't keep blaming my parents. At this point, I'm too old to always be like, oh, they didn't do this or they didn't do that. Like I'm 41 years old. I can't keep going back to that well. Like I'm at the point to where I have to do what's best for my life, and understand that whatever choices that I make from now on, like I have to be fully responsible for whatever decisions that I make, and I cannot go back to that. Oh, woe is me! Look at how I grew up and how I was raised, and I did a damn good job because I came from the inner city, from a poor family, single parent, and I'm middle class. And I know that I'm not a six-figure salary guy, but I busted my ass to the point to where I have a livable wage, where I can take care of myself, where I can have decent looking clothes. I'm going to the gym, taking care of myself. I understand how important health and fitness is. Even though when I was younger, I didn't put a lot of emphasis on it, but now that I'm older and I'm wiser and I have the money to do certain things, I'm doing what it is that I need to do. And I'm also keeping my stress levels down as much as possible because I realize the higher my stress levels are, the more health issues that I would have. So, with that being said, I understand that there was a program put into me growing up that now that I'm older, I have to do my best to deprogram myself. And that's the topic of what it is that I was talking about, like the program that I was put in to be either a simp, son, husband, or a cleanup man. And one thing that I had to experience growing up was that I was never allowed to verbally express my frustrations. Like whenever I was frustrated about anything, even if it was major, I was always told that it was inappropriate for me to say anything. I was supposed to just shut up and deal with everything. Uh, I have an older sister, and she grew up with me the majority of my childhood, and she could express herself freely and say whatever it is that she want. But me, I was never allowed to say what it is that I would like to say or express myself the way that I needed to express, even if it was in a respectful way. I was always shut down. I was always told that my place was to be quiet, and I was always told to shut up, and I was always forced to allow myself to get treated poorly by other family members. Like, you know, I remember times when me and my older sister would get into arguments, and it'll be about certain things. I can't think about what the arguments were about, but it was always about one of us trying to get our way. And if my mother was around, she would always make me be the first one to be quiet. Like she wouldn't, even if I was in the right in the conversation, it didn't matter. I had to be quiet. I was the one that had to just stop talking. And if I didn't stop talking, she would put her hands on me. She would lay hands on me. My sister could joke about me and lay insults on me. But if I did it back to her, I would get hands laid on me, you know? And then I was in a household where most of the time I was like the only male in the household, and it was three women. It was my mother, my adopted grandmother, and my sister. And a lot of times I found myself in a position of always taking verbal abuse from each one of them, and there was nothing that I could do, and I didn't have an outlet. And since I looked the way that I look in the inner city, when I went outside, I had to deal with boys that looked at me as not being one of them. And because I didn't act like them or talk like them, I found myself in precarious positions a lot of times when I went outside. So, with all that stress and all that trauma, even in school, I had to deal with that. And I got into many fights. I lost about 50% of those fights. I will admit that. I won 50% though. So, average. So anyway, going through all that, and not having a true outlet. Like I had like this rage and this anger that was building up in me, and then times when I would have to, go to school in unkempt conditions, it just did something to me. And I was expected to put all of my personal feelings aside. Like my feelings didn't matter. Like I had to think about how everybody else felt. It was like, oh, I know that you upset, but what about me? How do you think that I feel about the situation? Like my feelings and my opinions never really mattered, you know? And I noticed that because I was treated as such when I grew up and I became the type of person that I am where I'm I empathize with others, like I have a big heart, There are individuals that look at me and say, it doesn't matter what this fool thinks because he a fool to be so open and be so generous. We should be able to direct him to how it is that he needs to be directed so we can take full advantage of him to the best of his abilities until he wakes up and realizes what's going on and then doesn't want anything to do with us. But then we'll just gaslight him and make it seem like everything is his fault, so he'll come back crawling to us eventually. And I saw this cycle repeating over and over again with different groups that I was a part of, different organizations that I was a part of. And then I had to sit down to myself and realize that, hey, you know, even though I was raised to think like this, I had to realize that this is a me problem. You know what I'm saying? And I was made to feel so insecure because also with dealing with that, I had to be mocked for any behaviors that was similar to my father, like, hearing oh, you just like your daddy, or, oh, you eat just like your daddy, or, oh, you trying to think like your daddy. Like, just because I might have a preference for the type of woman that I like, it was like, oh, you just like your daddy. He a misogynist, or he's shallow and you shallow just like your daddy. Just throwing all this stuff on me, all these projections on me. You know what I'm saying? I was made fun of for my personal appearance and told that I couldn't get the woman that I wanted. Like, ever since I was little, I already knew what I liked. I knew what type of woman I liked, and it hasn't changed. But I was always mocked and made fun of for what it is that I liked and told that I would never get that. And then I had those feelings and fears and insecurities put on me. And then not knowing that those feelings and fears and insecurities are put on me, and people can pick up on that just right quick. And when they pick up on it, they can use it against me, and they can torture me, and they can make me feel bad about who it is that I am because they saying, oh, you just don't measure up. And it's nothing that you can do about it. And even though they'll say, oh, you know what you could do about it? You can, try to build yourself up, work as hard as possible, get as much money as possible, help out the community, and then people look at you different. But then if you have these insecurities and these fears inside of you that's been placed in you unknowingly, people can pick that up and they can say, oh, this dude is just full of shit. He just want to get up out of this position that he's in. He don't care about anybody but himself. And then they will try to manipulate you and to gaslight you and to beat you down to be the type of person that they want you to be. And you see, I had to deal with that. I also had to be a punching bag for the people in my household, and eventually others outside of the household. I became that punching bag for. Everybody project their anger out on me. Everybody project, their insecurities on me. Everybody just attacked me, and attacked me. And now that I'm older and I understand what's going on and I'm doing my best to fix the situation, I understand that, man, these attacks are not going to slow down. They're not going to stop. I just have to build myself up to a point to where I can deal with it. And if I don't have to be around certain people, I won't allow myself to be around certain people. And it's regardless if I feel alone or if I feel lonely, I'm not going to allow myself to be around people that's going to mistreat me. No matter how lonely I get, no matter how much it is that I feel like I don't have any friends, I don't have any real associates, I have to stand my ground, and I have to learn how to be okay with being by myself. And that's a part of it. Like, I had attachment issues. You know what I'm saying? And because I had these insecurities about me, I would try to force relationships on individuals. And I had to realize that just like nobody can force a relationship on me, I can't force a relationship on anybody else. It was up to me to change that. You see what I'm saying? And I had to deal with getting beat for minor infractions. You know, I had hands laid on me for things. Sometimes I didn't do what was said that I've done, but I had to still suffer the consequences for it. And I know that some people say that, oh, you should just man up and just deal with it. But nobody can tell me how it is that I should feel about certain situations. Now that I'm older, I realize that I have to get over what happened, but it doesn't mean that it didn't happen. It happened. And I had a right to express what happened, whether it is anybody likes it or not. And I had to constantly get yelled at and expected not to speak up for myself. Going through that, imagine being an adult and that's how you were treated all your life inside your home. And then you become an adult and then you try to express yourself and you try to stand up for yourself, and people see those insecurities about you and they just all of them just want to project on you at the same time just so they can shut you down because they don't see you as being a equal or a human being. They see you as being a tool because you were raised to be a tool to be used and then thrown in disregard once you are broken. I had to listen to people in my household say all men are dogs, even though I was that child, that young boy that was going to grow up to be a man. And so that was telling me that when I become an adult, I was expected to be a dog. And that's because of the type of men that certain individuals were dating while I was growing up, that they knew that these men didn't care about them, but the reason why they kept those men around is because of how those men looked. And I'm not trying to bash anybody, I'm just telling the honest truth. Or because they had a certain swag about them, or they felt like they couldn't get the type of man that they want, so they just settle for whatever. And then me growing up seeing that, I realized the type of things that I was seeing in my household was what I was attracting to me. Those same type of women. And I was just like, wow, why is this happening to me? Because I was raised a certain way. And I have to break out of those mindsets that I have so I can move forward in my life. And that's by any means necessary. And this didn't just happen in childhood. Even while I was a full adult, I was treated like that same child, like I was just supposed to be a utility, a battery. It doesn't matter what issues that I'm going through. I'm supposed to think about everybody else's issues. I'm supposed to allow myself to get used. I'm supposed to allow myself to get mistreated just so everybody else can feel better or have what it is that they want. Screw what it is that I feel or how it is that I want things. That doesn't matter. And since I was raised that way and then I became adult and I was still treated that way, and then I found myself trying to break out of that, it became a major clash between me and them people. And there was even women that were younger than me in my family that picked up on these things and then they tried to use it against me. But then at that point, I was like, it ain't happening. It's not happening. I'm not going to allow you to treat me like that. I'm not going to allow anybody to treat me like that. I'm going to focus on myself. I'm going to heal myself and I'm going to do what's best for myself because this is my life. And then I was expected to solve problems while neglecting my own issues. This is the definition of a simp. This is a definition of a son husband. This is a definition of a cleanup man. You're not looking to improve your situation. You're looking to improve other people's situations while neglecting your own. And then when you find yourself poor, destitute, and alone and disregarded like trash, then you looking at it like, hey, where's my help? You weren't ever expected to receive help by anybody else. You were expected to give help. That was your job, your mission. You are a utility. And because a lot of men are starting to wake up and see how it is that we are treated and how it was that we were programmed, and we starting to see like, hey, things aren't right the way that they are. And now it's a lot of us that's rebelling against this program, and we are doing things like, red pill or passport bros or manosphere or whatever, MGTOW, monk mode, however we want to deal with it, pay to play, however we want to deal with it. Now we're looked at as an enemy of the community because we said, hey, we aren't playing this role because this role isn't fair. And we know that life isn't fair, but we're not just going to allow ourselves to be treated like batteries by the community to keep this dysfunction going on. I'm not going to allow myself to be disrespected, taking care of other men's children that I didn't help create. And then I'm not going to allow myself to get mistreated by those children while being treated like the bad guy, while all of her insecurities are being projected on me because she knows that I'm doing the best that I can. And even though I'm not what it is that she wants, she needs me even though she doesn't want me. You see, we wasn't supposed to wake up to what it is that's going on. But now that we woke up, now the information is out here. Now we taking risks to do what it is that we need to do for our personal lives so we can live better. You all have a problem with that. You see, it's a movement that happened. And I'm like, right now, I consider myself a passport bro. Who knows if that's going to change in the future or not? But I know one thing, I'm not going to allow myself to get walked on just to have companionship. I'm going to keep on improving on myself, doing what it is that I need to do, build myself up for me. And then once I build myself up, I'm going to protect what it is that I built up so nobody can take advantage of me. Because I understand that the majority of individuals out here in the world just looking for a come up. They looking for a lick. See, that's game. Even though I probably not that successful women, I have game. I said the same things to the same women that these guys that get chosen by the women say. And I see that game only works when a woman wants it to work. You see, so I'm a lot more intelligent than what it is that you all want to give me credit for, but I'm not looking for your credit anymore. I'm putting my actions to use. I'm not going to allow myself to be that simp, that son husband, that utility, that cleanup man. And I made a commitment to myself to better myself so I wouldn't be in that position anymore. And with that being said, this is just Bob Bowman, and I'm out.